from members who support the station and alumni who support the station. And I got to tell you honestly, I have way more fun with the alumni. Some of them are near and dear to my heart and will always be there. One sitting in the back, one sitting not too far away. So, and so many others that are just have become friends. First alums, then friends, and I am thankful for everyone. So thank you all for being here. This is a wonderful event because there's a few of you in the room that I really want you to see this film because it is so well done and it didn't gloss anything over. And I think you will be very proud to see it and say, I was a big part of it, because you all were. So I'm going to hand it off to, should I hand it off to Jolie or Ben Green?
Hand it off to Ben Green.
Ben and I are going to sort of tag team you, so.
TV, you had to get up and turn the channel by hand. There's no remote controls. And sometimes I wish that era of broadcasting stayed because people were so emotionally connected to broadcasting. And I think this movie, I hope, raised that spirit. People were and always have been emotionally connected to broadcasting, but WAER is distinctive. People are viscerally connected to that place and their own experience there. It's clearly evolved. It's transformed from 1947 to today. I know my time at WAER bears very little resemblance to much of what I saw during different eras at WAER. But people are viscerally connected no matter when they were there. Some people are still aggravated by their treatment at WAER. But at least they're aggravated by it. At least they cared enough about the place to be aggravated by it. And that speaks to the power of the institution. And I hope that that's what we try to capture there. That people have an emotional connection to WAER that transcends their emotional connection to their professional workplaces, even to their other university experiences. And that's to be celebrated because the people who founded WAER are truly long gone. We're blessed to have Larry Meyer still with us, but that's 70 years ago. And they've passed down this thing that remains so special to us.
We had a week of programming that was targeted, and Tony said, you know what? I don't know, I was a freshman at the time, so why don't you come? I'm like, I don't know anything about any of this. I'm in pre-med, I don't know anything about this, I'm not in New House. Just come. And I ended up staying and becoming the program director for Minority and Women's Affairs.
Rick Weinstein, 1977 to 1980. I did the jazz show every Sunday, Jazz Sunday. The gentleman to my left was the gentleman who was on the air when I did my first show. He handed the mic to me. My very first show, I remember it like it was yesterday. I did the half-baked clamshell blues hour, which was the name we came up with. I did the reggae show. I did the show where in an hour we had 4 different formats. I did overnights. I did 6 to 10 in the morning, 10 to 3, 3 to 7, 10 to 2, 2 to 6, and then one day I was on the air, it was a weekend, and 2 gentlemen came out of the elevator at the 4th floor, and I turned on the speaker, the speaker phone. I said, hi, how can I help you? They said, I'm Howie Castle, and this is Tommy Nast. We're from WSYR, AM and FM, and we just heard you on the radio. We want to talk to you. And I was like, you are? And I buzzed them in, and they hired me on the spot for WSYR, AM and FM. So I would work all week long on WAER. I engineered my own shows, and then on weekends I would do the overnight. On Saturday night at WSYR AM, and I did the overnight on Sunday night at WSYR-FM. So I was a radio guy through and through.
When did you sleep?
I remember getting home at 6 o'clock in the morning and sleeping, and I took school pretty seriously. I did go to the Bird Library, and I tried to hide out in those rooms. I couldn't really handle, if I didn't hide, I couldn't study. If there was any humanity around, I had to know what was going on. So I tried to do it all, I tried, and I did graduate.
What was WAER-FM's programming format?
It was commercial rock. You know, we played
AOR?
Van Halen. Yeah, it was AOR. It was, you know, Van Halen, and it was AC/DC, and it was Seeger, and it was Aerosmith.
And the AM was top 40 station?
The AM was a news talk station. And I remember I was on the air doing news when the Shah of Iran came to the United States to get his medical treatment. I remember it was really intense. And I felt very, and you know, we had to record news over the network, and then we would play network news broadcasts over the air. And I remember one night, and this gentleman just passed away, I can't remember his name, but I put a tape on, because I didn't listen to it. I just, you know, recorded it, played it, and he started to choke while he was doing the news, and he started over. But I didn't know. I thought he was, and I flipped open the mic and I said, and I can't remember his name because you all know this guy. He was national. And I said, "Are you okay?" And then eventually he got his act together and he did the news. It was I have a million stories, and that was just one of them. But I was on the air all the time.
And Tony Bennia, and I was on the air from 74 through 79. And kudos to station management at the time, who saw some promise in me. And that was Larry Fox and Ed Lubin and Craig Fox. I had to write down some of the names. The senior moments as you get a little bit older. Dan Dare was there. Who else was on when I was on? John Sykes. MTV fame.
Tony, if you were in 74, then I must
George Gilbert.
I must have cleared you.
Right.
How about Bob Shepardson?
Bob Shepardson.
Never Shepardson?
Yeah.
Sure. Right.
How about
Right.
what was his
Hamburger
name?
Henry.
Hamburger Henry Baker. It was spectacular.
Right.
Just
Tom
spectacular.
Sword?
Absolutely.
But-
Let her be for engineer.
But
Jim Henderson?
but to put
Jim
some
Henderson?
perspective on what I felt was my mission and purpose when I was at AER. You got to consider when I was at the university. I was at AER from 74 to 79, but I was in Syracuse 11 years. I did my undergrad, grad, and I actually worked for the university for 6 years. Undergrad, I was there from 68 to 72, 73. So you think about what was happening during those years at major universities. My freshman year, King was assassinated. Kennedy was assassinated. Major riots in major cities all across the country. So coming in as a freshman and coming in as a black freshman, of which there were only 50 in my class. We were the largest minority enrollees at Syracuse University at that time in 1968. So we came to the university with a purpose and a vision, we felt, as 18-year-olds, okay? Kent State, closing of the university, all of that stuff happened when I was there. Black students starting up the demonstrating for Black Studies programs at the university. The black football players getting thrown off the football team happened during my sophomore year, and those classmates were in, those football players were my classmates, okay? So all of that activity imprinted me during my undergraduate years at Syracuse University. As a graduate student, that's when I got into Newhouse and I got into communications. So during my undergraduate years, I didn't know Bob Casas. Of course, I didn't go over to the prefab. I knew Cephas Bowles because he was a student of color. I knew all of the students of color who were on the prefab, like Andrew Manns, Wes Diaz, Chuck Stevens, Granger Ward. Yeah, so I knew all of those folks, okay, because there were so few of us at the time, right? In 19 1973, I got admitted into Newhouse. I did it part-time. I also worked for the university, in Syracuse University's Higher Education Opportunity Program. So I used my tuition benefits to enroll in Newhouse, and I did part-time over 2 years instead of doing it in 1 year. Okay. So in '74, that was my introduction to WAER. Okay. But I definitely went there with a perspective and a mission in mind. When I surveyed the state of radio in the city of Syracuse at that time, particularly as it pertained to minority programming, there wasn't any programming, right? So I saw WAER as a vehicle for being able to satisfy that community need, okay? From a community perspective, from a minority community perspective in Syracuse at that time, it was like patchwork programming. Skip Harrison, who was very big in the community at the time, I think he was on SEN. Jim Martin was on OLF. Beverly Burke was also on the radio. So if you were in the city of Syracuse in 1974, 75, and you want to tune into the radio from a minority perspective, it was, you literally had to do a patchwork puzzle on your refrigerator to figure out who was on when, okay? When I got to AER with Larry, my intention was the program. The idea that I came up with was 360 degrees, okay? The concept of the program was, the base was an African diaspora of music, and so that can mean anything from jazz, R&B, blues, the whole spectrum of African music, okay? I remember trying to pitch that idea and actually playing it on the radio station, and initially I would get into conflict with some of station management. Larry Fox and myself, we definitely had our battles going back and forth because, and understandably, this is a student-run station, okay? We're a student station. That's what our mission is, okay? The way I looked at it was, yeah, we're a student station, but we have a community purpose. And although selfishly I was, well, I don't think it was selfish then, my mission was to address a specific target in the Syracuse audience, okay? But so we had to, work out that balance between being student-run station, meeting the general student programming need, as well as satisfying the need of this particular target within the Syracuse audience, within Central New York. So we came to a happy medium with that. So there was my program, there was Marjorie Clarke, Bright Moments.
At Bright Moment, and Dan followed me.
Right.
I was new to 3, and Dan came right behind me.
Yep.
So I was a heavy jazz. My thing was jazz.
There was Bill Francis.
And Bill Francis.
High Energy Visions of Black, he called his program.
It was non-stop Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Had Margie not, Marjorie, right?
You can call me both.
Okay. Had she not named her show Bright Moments, I never would have gotten into Ross and Kirk.
Yes.
Okay? So because of this
That's
woman,
right.
I got into Rasan, which has changed my life, and to this day, I listen to the man all the time, okay? So you changed my life, okay? In a very positive way.
Well, all of you guys changed our lives because, again, I went to Syracuse to be a doctor. And this opened up a whole other realm of radio was just something you listened to. And back then, it was AM radio, and FM was just starting. And my parents' car only had AM radio. So having the exposure to all of you guys, but the thing about the student-run part of it is we were free to pick the music we wanted to play. It was pre-programmed. So the freedom, and God bless John Sykes, because he was a Columbia Records rep, and Phil Corderero was A&M. Those student reps made sure we had everything that those powerhouses at the time had, all the new stuff, and we were able to play it. We could pick what we wanted to play. No one told us, well, this is what we're selling, so you have to only play this.
And you know what's interesting is that as a white person on the radio, you guys turned us on to so much great music. And when I was colorblind. Like when I played what I played on the radio, which was appreciated from what I understand. We were colorblind, like all of us. We were all on the same team. I didn't see the difference. I know you guys were trying to make a statement and it was necessary at the time. It really was, because people were not getting it.
But you guys, we got it. That's the thing about it, is we all got it. And we also were exposed to each other's music. I know more about rock music than most people would even imagine I know, because the freedom that AER provided for us.
I got
and
it.
the forum that it provided for us.
So musically, I got it, the Inagata, the Vita. I got it from a whole bunch of other
We're sorry about it.
stuff.
From a musical perspective,
Yes.
I showed up and Mitch Rowan gave me an overnight shift, some fateful Thursday, and I started with the Kinks. You really got me. John Murphy was PD at the time. Thank you, gentlemen. Somehow we got this going. But I was always, I was stuck between Newhouse, because I was pre-med. That didn't last very long.
Exactly.
And I transferred in. I was a music history and a bass minor at Krause. And all the stuff that I was learning up there from guys like Steve Marconi and Ron
Weller.
Right.
Well, Bill.
Where we went through the senior moment with the names.
Okay.
We learned an awful lot about jazz, certainly how to play it, how to approach it. And then for me to be able to go and spend time in that music library was impossibly important to my personal development. What I did after radio, I decided I was more about the music than the music business. So I went to work at Sigma Sound Studios in New York, where I can drop names like nobody's business. But the deal is my musical education allowed me to have the breadth of musical understanding to function in that environment. So what I grew from your basic white kid growing up on Dan Ingram and Ryan Lundy, and ultimately the more progressive stuff we grew up with in New York, the WAER-FMs. And I started with the Kinks, but once I started learning about all this other music, what I would do, and I did every possible shift you could do. I spent summers there. The engineering money was how I was able to sustain myself. So the fact that the music became less important, I get it, everything changes.
What was minimum wage then? It was like $2.75?
Oh, it was chump change. It was chump.
$1.75.
Pizza was cheap. Pizza was cheap. So the deal is that I was able to sustain myself, build my skills, which I still use today, which are presentation. I work in the software world. Been talking and presenting forever. And I never one day discount any of the stuff from the people that I learned from at AER. And the thing that was the icing on the cake is that it was my peers. I had to impress this guy. I had to impress this guy. I had all these new teammates. And how my music evolved over the years was, so let's say I'm doing an afternoon show and God knows where, was on the schedule. I would make sure that we try and, if we're getting something that's a little funkier, more, esoteric programming, not the AOR thing, I made sure we worked our way there. Try and leave you with some Roy Ayers or some Miles, or something to make this thing still be cohesive.
And the other part too, though, just before I jump in, about that is, since we were free form, we used to call it Washington Radio, we also had the opportunity to read the liner notes. And we had the time while we were talking about the music or setting the music up, we could talk about who's playing and who these musicians are and use that as a transition. It was almost like going to music class, music history.
Entertainment.
It was beyond that because we were entertainment. Yes, entertainment.
But what was also great was that the music directors had a lot of influence on us. I remember when The Clash came out, okay? And The Clash's first record was in what we call the emphasis bin. and you had to play something from the Emphasis band. And there were like 30 records in there, so you could, you know, mess with it. But I'm like, you know, this album is in there. I got to learn to figure this out. So 76 to 80, when I was on the radio, was the punk era.
Yes.
That's when punk came out. We even had punk bands in Syracuse.
Yes.
I mean, it was like local punk bands, you know. Everyone was walking around with the thin ties. It was classic. And the music scene was off the charts. Just, you know, so the Pretenders and the Ramones and the Runaways and on Erie Boulevard in small clubs. I mean, it was just ridiculous. Anyway, you know, so what we would do is we would like, you know, somehow we knew that music was important,
right.
And maybe we couldn't get our arms around it, but we would force ourselves to play it because we had to. Because it was the top of the hour and you had to play something from the Emphasis bin, you know? And there, you know, you played a Clash song and, you know, maybe 30 years later I figured it out.
Music's always
Okay,
believable.
you know, as I sit here listening to all about comments, you know, I realized that our experience was the 70s,
Right.
but the documentary is on AER and the total experience.
Talk about it.
So there were people before us and there were people after us.
Can I get someone? I have
Okay. Not only that,
Yeah.
He has something.
we were music focused.
Yeah.
It's news,
Right.
it's
Sports.
sports.
Sure.
Okay. So I want to acknowledge
But you were
that.
public affairs, right?
Okay.
I was both. I was music and public affairs. I talked about everything. Bright Moments was not just music.
Right.
So speaking of a little bit of everything, and when you mentioned, Tony, you mentioned about the city of Syracuse. I have a young man, I said young, one of my mentors, who's on the line live from Syracuse, Butch. Say hello, introduce yourself to everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Bud.
Good.
I hope you can hear me.
Yeah. Clear.
What's Charles?
Yes, Butch Charles.
He's my mentor too.
Butch was always happy to see me because I'd do 6 a.m. and he'd do the overnights. And it wasn't always at 6 a.m. Thank you for that,
Was
Butch.
Matthew Reed of Butch.
Oh, yeah, man used to come on after me, after they made me do the bit, you know, 2 to 6 in the morning.
Plus one.
And the dude.
Sure. So Butch, give us a little history about your WAER experience.
Well, I don't know how well you hear me, so I'll try to be brief. You know, my WAER experience started November 4th, 1975, when I was cleared to go on the air, and I had just come to school on August 31st, so I hold the record for the fastest to be cleared to go on the air at WAER. And it is WAER that changed my majors from engineering to straight up wanting to get into Newhouse. Since I didn't apply to Newhouse and come in that way, I was arts and sciences. I was able to eventually get into Newhouse by going through WAER and taking classes associated with radio and being able to get in after that. You know, I'm going to skip all of the other stuff of minority affairs director and traffic director and the fights we used to have with senior staff as I came in and just fast forward right up to the point where I'm sitting in the dean of the broadcast journalism department for Newhouse, sitting in his office on the 3rd floor, room 391. And having him tell me to my face that he was going to work very hard to bring NPR in and get rid of the programming that's currently on on the station now. It wasn't befitting of what Syracuse University should be showing for their main station. I was just sitting here looking at some old clippings from 1980 and 81. Where they talked, where there was a discussion about Chancellor Mel Eggers and how he didn't think that WAER should be playing rock and roll for the TV lovers. I thought I heard Tony mention and a couple others mention all of the names of folks who have come through WAER it's amazing how long I've been able to live off of that. And it's my advantage here in Syracuse. So it was a major part of growing up for a lot of young people in the 70s and 80s through WAER. And I thank you for the opportunity to at least say hello to y'all and be a part of what was a great documentary done by Scott.
Well, Butch, I thank you for calling in. Real quick, anyone from the panelists got any questions, anything you want to ask Butch?
You sound great, dude. This is Matthew.
I didn't hear that, but I'm assuming it was positive.
Yeah, it was very, you sound great, Butch. It's Matthew. It's good to hear your voice. You look good on film, too, brother.
I was going to say the same. When did you get locked? You look great. It's Marjorie.
Marjorie said, when did you get locks?
Years worth. That's years worth.
Years ago.
That's years
Marjorie
worth of
said, when
dread.
did you get locks?
I don't remember that.
You cut your locks off?
I did cut my locks off.
Oh, okay. He joined the crowd like I did.
Okay.
Well, Butch, I thank you very much, and I will be in contact. All right.
Bye.
Can I just mention that, Butch was my program director.
Right.
He's gone, right? He was my program director, and during the 4 years that we were that I was on the air, 3 years, whatever, it was totally student run. Ben, you were there. At the end. It was totally student run. It was, I have never seen, and I was saying this earlier to Matthew, everybody took it so seriously. The fact that the university didn't realize or thought in their own minds that we did not take it seriously, and that we didn't think we had a job to do, and that we weren't trying to really, run it like a professional radio station.
Right.
I think we all took ownership, and it was the most magnificent thing. When when Tony bounced the ball to me to my show, and on and on and on, it was not just a kind of just a flippant thing, It was like, okay, now it's my turn, and I felt like I had listeners out there. My phones were ringing, people were making requests, we were serving up the requests. I mean, all those things serve the community. Sir.
Just every one of the classes, I go way back to the mid-60s, because this was an over-the-air radio. This wasn't a class, this wasn't a little workshop that was done. This was over-the-air radio. You were working with an audience out there. Everybody, whether it was engineers, whether executives, whether it was honored talent, took it very, very seriously because this was the real thing.
Right. It was. Exactly. And the newspapers in town, when they wrote their articles about the top DJs in Syracuse, we were on there.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
challenged them.
I instituted the very first simulcast with UUTV, so I interviewed all the bands that came to campus, so I would interview, let's say, Chick Corea or Pat Metheny or John McLaughlin, and we would simulcast it over UUTV. I mean, that was spectacular stuff. That was right in keeping with Newhouse and what we wanted to do in our profession. And no one told us what to do.
No.
No one told us how to do it.
Which segues for me the questions that I have that were raised in the documentary.
Right.
What happened from all of what we were doing to all of it being decided all of a sudden we don't know what we're doing?
Right.
How did that happen?
Oh my God.
How did that happen? And is it a switch in chancellorship? Is it a switch in a focus more because sports and because sports is now up in the business and they want the money, and so they want the money, so they have to do. Really, you can still make the money and still train the people.
Right.
Because I think if you went through every one of us who've been through or did work at WAER, everybody is doing something out of that experience and doing it very well based on that experience. So everybody who touches that radio station utilizes that learning in addition to what they do in the rest of their lives. So you've made a foundation. So at some point, to me, the documentary, I sat there with my head like, wait, what? What happened? I know I got busy in the 80s, and I wasn't thinking about it, but somewhere, somebody forgot that we actually didn't know what we were doing.
Well, one of the rationales that the documentary shows that was used was the fact that the station's ratings plummeted to the bottom.
That's not true.
Yeah,
Well, I'm saying that's what the doc.
I know that's what the doc said, but I can't wrap my head around it.
But what you have-
But with all due respect, we weren't in the ratings business.
Right, what you have to understand, is
We were we were not about demos. We were about psychographics.
Yeah,
We were
showing them.
I'm not
in the
trying
ratings.
to, I'm not trying to support it, but what you have to understand is that in the late 60s and early 70s into the mid 70s, the station was the only station in the market that played rock, that played jazz, that played urban music. There was no other station there. And when 95X came on the air, suddenly there was a major station that was playing the format that was the top format at the moment, AOR.
That was depressing, actually.
But
I
you
remember
know,
that
those people, campus and town, who wanted to hear that music didn't have to listen to it on ADR any longer. And that kind of, you know, pulled the rug out of the power, in a sense, that the station had. Because I have to tell you that one of the things that I don't think a lot of people realize is that the station had a really important impact on a national level. Because at that time, in the late 60s, early 70s, it was the only station in that marketplace that was playing this diverse mix of music. And the Syracuse was, if I'm not mistaken, it was a top 50 market at that time. And so the station reported to Billboard and the other major trades, and the record companies treated the station not like a college station, which those college stations got very short shrift, but they treated it like a major commercial radio station.
Every band wanted to come to our station
Right,
and get interviewed.
Well, where did that come from? That came from one of your alumni who went to Columbia Records and was a superstar. And another alumni
No, it
that
was
went...
before that. It was before that. It was before that. It came from...
But Gary Leeds was also in the music business. And he came out of Syracuse.
It happened because... It really happened because it started with Jeff Chart, who was the station program director, who became the Columbia College rep, who made Columbia understand that this station is an important station. I came in after Jeff was music director. I knew some people at Columbia and other labels, and once I saw that we had Newhouse and we had this facility, I got them to allow us to bring bands into the station to play. And we actually, what's in the parlance, we broke records on a national level.
Absolutely.
The Bottle by Gil Scott-Heron,
Yes.
WAER,
Love
was
that.
the first station in the country to really get behind that record, and it was on a small independent label.
Yep, I remember.
It was not.
I played it.
It wasn't on.
By the time I got out, it was a racetrack in France. But, you know, I'm a little...
It wasn't on Aristide yet. In fact, the success of that record helped him get a better deal. We actually, the station, very few people know that the station was instrumental in helping to save Bruce Springsteen's career. He was about to get dropped from Columbia Records, and Columbia leaked an early advanced copy of the song Born to Run to about 8 radio stations that had played Bruce Springsteen and supported. AER was one of them. And as a result of playing this, I mean, this is a year and a half before the album came out. This one song was done. As a result of playing this song, a commotion, not just AER, but these 8 stations, playing this song, which a lot of the people in Iraq, when they heard this, they played it incessantly.
Ed Levine.
Ed Levine.
Ed Levine loved it. Oh my God. All the time.
And in fact, WOER Utica and CMF in Rochester, which were the 2 big commercial rock stations in the region, they didn't get a copy of this advance. They were furious about it. But this commotion helped save Springfield.